Honorable members, it was not long ago when I gave my inaugural speech in which I shared a very personal story of my son asking me that, Mama, are you really a member of parliament now? And the question that he raised, do you want the book as well, was that I don't look like an Australian. That question not only broke my heart, but it was really concerning, not because of his doubt, but because of the reality behind it. A child who's born in Australia, who has been raised here and who's excelling in every dimension in this country, still wonders if his mother belongs here. Still wonders if his face, his skin color, his story counts as an Australian enough. And last week, on the 31st of October, angry voices in our streets screamed the same question: who belongs? Pointing their fingers at migrants, at people like me, at families like mine, and millions of Australians who, in the eyes of just a very few, do not fit the stereotype. And we've heard by some very followed personalities, members of parliament, like Senator Price, as well as people in this chamber leading those rallies, asking the question, and there has been a debate that has come up as if it is a contest that who's been in this country for how many generations, and that makes us more Australians. So I thought I'll share a fun fact with the House today. As per the DNA evidence, and it goes back to not just a few generations, but approximately 141 generations, when the people and the community who were targeted, particularly just because of the numbers of migration in this country, which is my community, the South Asian community or the Indian community in general, whose genes have been integrated in the very first people of this nation. And it's not just one. There's some really good evidences. I would like to table these for all of you guys to have a look, that have been provided by the science and the DNA, that it's approximately 4,000 years back, if you go back, that was migration from India to Australia happened. And some Aboriginal Australians carry up to 11% of their ancestry from those migrants. And this coincided with the arrival of the dingoes and the tools that were just not binding our histories long before the Europeans set foot here. And even further back, the southern route out of Africa saw our South Asian forefathers share deep ancestral roots with the first peoples of this land. So I think we need to stop this debate right here, that who is more Australian and how do we define that? Because if you're looking for evidence, that evidence is very, very clear.
Yeah.
So when people say you don't look Australian, let us remember that it is not the face or the language or the accent or just a skin color that defines who is Australian. It's the spirit. It's the Australian values which defines us, how much of an Australian we are. And last week, when we were doing the budget updates, the budget estimates, and there were a few points made by some of the honourable members in this chamber, that how much of a burden migrants are on our health system and in general on our economy. So I thought I would also share some data with you guys, which I have obtained from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Out of the Australian current population, which is 27.2 million people, 8.6 million Australians were born overseas. That means 1 in every 3 of us. Migrants contribute $112 billion in personal income every year, and skilled migrants alone add 81 billion to our economy. Migrants hold nearly half of all our STEM jobs in this country, which includes engineering, IT, research, and innovation sectors. And in our hospitals, specifically, over 40% of doctors and 35% of nurses were trained overseas. In aged care, 2 in every 5 workers is a migrant. The Migration Council projects that by 2050, migration will make our economy 40% larger than it would otherwise be. And that is the difference between stagnation and prosperity. And these are not just the statistics, these are proof of the enormous value that migrants bring to this country. It is not just a sentiment that I'm sharing with you guys, but these are hard facts that migrants do not take from Australia, they make Australia. In Western Australia alone, our mining workforce has migrants at its core. Our universities and hospitals rely on them. And nowhere is the reliance clearer than in healthcare. According to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, some of the most critical specialities depend most heavily on international doctors. 51% of our intensive care specialists, 44% of emergency medicine doctors, and 42% of general practitioners were trained abroad. Australia ranks 6th highest in the OECD countries for internationally trained doctors. And on the contrary, Australia is ranking 21st lowest for domestically trained doctors per capita. And it is happening right now, while we also hear in this chamber that how much of a burden we migrants are on our health system. Just last year, a record 5,431 doctors from overseas registered to practice in Australia, an 80% increase compared to pre-COVID levels, and many of them are serving in our rural and regional areas. It's people like me and my family who have chosen to live here, work here for this country, leaving our aged parents behind. It is a choice that we made because this is a gorgeous place, and it has given a lot to us in whichever capacities and visas we've come here. And I think people need to start to acknowledge and appreciate that rather than calling migrants a burden on the society. If we just look at the businesses, small businesses, 1 in 3 WA businesses is owned by a migrant, generating jobs and wealth for the local communities. The Commonwealth Treasury's Fiona model conclusively showed that 2018-19 permanent migrant cohort is fiscally positive at both the federal and the state level, and bringing a net benefit of 27,000 more per person. So migrants strengthen the nation not just socially and culturally, but financially and structurally. They're building prosperity in this country.